Welcome, everybody, to the award-winning RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy and FanDuel. It is Friday, January 26th. Alex Barutha here with Shannon McEwen and Ken K-Train Kreitz.
All aboard.
We had the All-Star starters announced last night. In the East, Giannis, Embiid, Tatum, Lillard, and Halliburton. In the West, LeBron, that's James, Jokic, KD, Luka, and SGA. Shannon, as is tradition, is there anybody that you think was either snubbed or maybe you just would have preferred to see as an all-star, or one person that you think maybe doesn't deserve to be there?
Yeah, I think in general, all 10 starters definitely deserve the nomination. The only one I really have any qualms about is Lillard. He's having a fine year for Milwaukee in his first year as a Buck, but there are two East guards. Yeah, I actually Donovan Mitchell would be my number one choice to replace Lillard, and then Jalen Brunson. So one of those two guards I think would be more deserving than Damian Lillard. But solid collection. Probably, arguably the 10 best players in the league or 10 of the 12 best players in the league are in the starting lineup. So it's hard to really nitpick any of those options.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Bucks fan. I don't hate the idea of either Mitchell or of Brunson being there. I mean, again, Lillard's been good. Just he's Damian Lillard. He's only going to be so disappointing to an extent. Ken, you still hate this All-Star game? I remember we used to. You and I did like a social media breakout one time where I'm like, I love All-Star Weekend, slam dunk contest, sign me up. And you were like, no, this is a joke.
It's a joke. No defense. I don't want anyone to get hurt. I don't even like to watch it. It's a good time to do chores around the house.
It definitely has become less and less watchable. I will give you that. Like, I almost feel like I have it on in the background at this point. Like I'm on my phone, and
vacuuming. I don't care. Just get something done with this garbage is on the air.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm still looking forward to All-Star Weekend, but mostly for the break.
For the lack of injury reporting, exactly.
And hopefully we can get some good participants in the slam dunk contest. I don't even know if that's been out. None of those have been announced, have they? Like 3-point slam dunk. Yeah. We'll see. Okay, let's go get some real basketball, Ken.
Yeah, let's go to New York, where Spike Lee's Knicks blew out the Nuggets last night, 122-84 at MSG. OG Anunoby with 26 points and 6 steals. All Knicks starters plus or better in point differential. Knicks won this despite still being without Isaiah Hartenstein again. Got an Achilles issue. He's missed 2 games. And, of course, Robinson's out for the year. The Nuggets did have a day of rest, but it was the end of a 5-game road trip. And Denver did go 3-2. Alex and Shannon, any reason for concern for the Nuggets?
Yes and no. I mean, they still can't win road games. They're 14-11 on the road. We always know they're better at home. There's a championship hangover thing that makes me not as worried. Where I think, they know they need to coast this year compared to last year a little bit more. At the same time, to me, this is almost more about the Knicks. Like how good they've looked since OG Anunoby got there. OG Anunoby's point differential is still an absolutely insane plus 44 per 100 possessions. Have never seen a number like that for this long of a stretch. To me, this is more about the Knicks.
Yeah, I agree there. With Denver, I mean, they have 31 wins. That's the second highest total in the Western Conference, a game and a half behind Minnesota, half a game behind the Thunder. I'm not really worried. And the Nuggets just had a big road win against Boston recently. So, they're the only team, I believe, that has beat Boston at home.
Correct.
So it's hard for me to really, give the Nuggets any grief here. The Knicks have been outstanding since OG has joined the team. I actually expected OG's line to be better as a Knick compared to his time with the Raptors this year. He is overall doing a much better fantasy player, primarily because his His efficiency has increased. He's gone from 49% to 51 from the floor, 71% to 88.6 from the free throw line, and then 1.8 3-pointers, down a little bit from what he had in Toronto. But on the defensive end, 1.8 steals and 1.2 blocks per game as a Knick, just crushing it for New York. I really am surprised, but he's kind of taking that leap. Hopefully he keeps that up. It's only 13 games. If he holds that value, he's like a top 40 fantasy player.
Yeah. Alex, take us to Miami, sir.
Well, I'm gonna toss it to you pretty quickly because it was Boston that extinguished Miami. 143 to 110. Heat 0-2 since the Rozier trade, but I'll let you wax poetic about what you saw.
Well, I want Shannon's take on the scary Terry trade to Miami. I'll tell you what saw that freaked me out was Kristaps Porzingis falling like a broken chair. He left the game early in an ugly fall. He stepped on Bam Adebayo's foot, rolled his ankle, but it would look panicky at first, but he did come back in his sweatsuit post-game. He said, hey, I could have played if we needed to, but we had a big lead. I'm sure they'll still give him the next game off, but I got a little nervous about losing the unicorn. But I think, if you've got the unicorn on your fantasy team, you're used to these frequent one-game misses. There's probably another one coming. But my goodness, they blew out the Heat in Miami, which is good to see after last year's Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of the games where Boston actually went full strength, right? They've been resting guys, taking turns
all in
with who has a seat on a given night. But they had a full strength total roster available last night, and they dominated Miami. I am not, I think the acquiring Terry Rozier was a great trade for Miami. They gave up Kyle Lowry's contract and a first-round pick. Scary Terry's, it's going to take some time. He's a ball-dominating guard. They already have some players like that who need the ball in their hands, Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler, even Jaquez to an extent, although he's been out. But I just think it adds this team. It makes their starting lineup better. Terry Rozier is a much better basketball player than Kyle Lowry at their respective stages of their careers. And it gives them more depth because now you have Josh Richardson, Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson, maybe Jaquez. We'll see where once he's healthy, if he comes off the bench or if he replaces Highsmith in the starting lineup. But it gives them a legit 8-9 man depth rotation of very solid players. So I like Miami and the move for Miami overall. I just think it's going to take some time for the chemistry to build.
I'll say this for the Heat. They're on a 5-game losing streak, and Jaquez has been out for 6 games. So he's missed all 5 of those losses. I think he's a critical part of this Heat rotation. They should move Jaquez into the starting lineup, in my opinion, or at least make sure he's getting plus 27 minutes a game.
I think there's a good chance he starts over Highsmith once healthy.
Yep. All right, let's go to Golden State. Last night, the Kings beat the Warriors in a thriller. Kings won 134-133. Harrison Barnes, 39 points, his second straight 30-plus point scoring night. And fantasy-wise, Wiggins got the start again for the Warriors. He went 17-4-4 in 31 minutes. So Wiggins slowly earning legit minutes for the Warriors. Shannon, as I think you pointed out last week's show. But back to the Kings. After a 4-game slide, they've won 2 in a row. Is the arrow pointing up for Sacramento, gentlemen?
Sort of. I mean, Barnes he'll have one of these games once in a while, right? He'll score 39 and then he'll score 8 and then he'll score 12 and then that's how it'll go.
7 threes last night. So a little fortunate from behind the arc, right?
Yeah, it's helped that Kevin Huerter's playing better. I mean, that's a big part of it. He was so bad throughout last stretch of the season for those who have drafted him in fantasy. But over the past 5 games, he's averaging 17 points, 50% from 3. That'll help. But that's big for them. I think they should be a team probably looking to add at the trade deadline. I don't think what they have is enough. But it may be tough to get there without giving up basically either all the picks they have or Keegan Murray.
Their bench after Monk gets thin.
Yeah, I highly doubt they would be interested in moving Keegan Murray at all. Harrison Barnes, I think I'm the only person who rostered Harrison Barnes in their DFS lineup last night and did not cash.
Oh my God.
3.5% rostered on DraftKings, 53 fantasy points, had him in my forward spot and somehow did not cash. You know, even I don't know what's going on, guys, but Harrison Barnes is in Flago from downtown right now, so we'll see if it carries on for a third straight game.
Alex, tell us about our good friends at Underdog Fantasy.
I will, just as soon as I open back up the document that I accidentally closed. Here it is. Underdog Fantasy is the #1 platform for NBA basketball and DFS player pick'em contests. If you haven't tried Underdog yet, new Underdog users receive a first-time deposit bonus up to $100 and a free 6-month subscription to RotoWire with promo code RWNBA. That's promo code RWNBA. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app today and use promo code RWNBA to claim your free RotoWire subscription and deposit bonus.
That's code RWNBA. It's now time for the fan feedback answer questions. And we're not getting any questions. We're getting a lot of all-star chatter.
We've answered everybody's questions. I mean,
apparently. What do we got here? Here's one. Is Jabari Walker of your Portland Trailblazers a pick-up now option?
Thank you for the question, James.
Thank you, James.
Clutch. Is he a pickup? I mean, look, I think we talked about him on, I think it was last week's pod, maybe.
Yes.
Briefly, and Portland's on a 4-game week. He's a very intriguing prospect. Portland is terrible. I think they're going to continue giving him minutes.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. He hasn't, like you said, we recommended him last week. To that extent, I think like 12-teamer, deep 12-teamers, 14-teamers, I think he's absolutely worth picking up. In 10-teamers, it's a little bit more complicated because his minutes are going to fluctuate a little bit. I mean, even if you look at his most recent starting stretch, it's 6 games in a row that he started, and he's bounced around. He has 41 minutes one game, 22 to the next, 34. He's had some decent games, a couple double-doubles, but he's not crushing it with like defensive stats. He is hitting 3-pointers. Over the 6-game stretch of the starter, 30 minutes, 10.5 points, 8.8 rebounds, only half a stock per game, and 1.2 3-pointers. Percentages are okay, 47% and 75. To me, in a 10-team league, if it's a 4-game week or something, you want to stream him, that might make sense for as long as he's starting. But I think he's more of a 12-team or 14-team target.
Okay, and one last one from our friend Maul asks, Grayson Allen or Scary Terry rest of season?
Oh wow, that's not a question I would have really considered, right. But I think it is. I think it's a legit question at this point. So I don't know if we mentioned it from the Heat game. Rozier in his first game, 9 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. In his second game, he started 7 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal. Took 11 shots in the first game. 10
he
shots
did not
in the
fit
game.
their. He didn't. He shot 3 of 10. Mostly, he doesn't know their offense yet. Like it was a little clear. He wasn't sure what he was doing. He was trying to create his own shot off the dribble, which is what they need. But it was like Boston has the 2 best defensive guards in the league, and they proved it with a confused Rozier who wasn't sure where he was supposed to be on the court all night.
I would rather have Rozier. Like Ken alluded to, I think he was trying to fit in. The matchup wasn't very good. They also got smoked by Memphis the game before, but Memphis very quietly playing pretty well lately. Rozier, go ahead.
Hey, I'm going Scary Terry as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we like Grayson Allen. We've talked about him quite a bit this season, multiple times on our waiver wire section. He's a good fit with Phoenix. He's producing well. He's providing fantasy value, especially for like 12-team leagues. He's a no-brainer to roster. But Scary Terry has more upside, and that's where I'm leaning. I expect basically whatever production Kyle Lowry had the last season or two with Miami, I expect Scary Terry to match. Maybe a few less assists. In 21-22, Lowry averaged 7.5 assists per game. I don't think Scary Terry will get there, But can he give you 12, 13 points per game, 5 assists, a couple 3-pointers? Yes, I think he can. And to me, that overall value is going to top what Grayson Allen provides.
All right, one last question. In Washington, higher ceiling for Bilal Coulibaly with the new head coach in place in Washington.
I would say maybe. Coulibaly is just not a polished offensive player. His 3-point shot, he's been hitting them pretty well, 38% from 3, pretty surprising given what he did, and he wasn't that good of a shooter overseas. He's also a 66% free throw shooter. To me, a higher ceiling would probably come from like just playing more, like playing like 35 minutes instead of like 26 minutes. Maybe they trust him a little more offensively, but as long as Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, Denny Avdija, Kyle Kuzma, as long as these guys are around and handling the ball, there's just not that much usage for Coulibaly.
Shot an ugly 0 for 5 last night on 29 minutes a run. The minutes are there, but they could kill your percentages.
I do think the upside's a little bit higher, just because he by default, this team will move a couple pieces before the trade deadline. It might not be Avdija, it might not be Kuzma, kind of to be determined. I highly doubt it's Poole, but they will move a piece or two, one or two of their veteran pieces before the trade deadline. That will open up more playing time for Coulibaly. So I do think he has more upside rest of season than what we've seen so far. And, with the fact that he, in the past week, he has a 4-block game, he has a 3-steal game. So he could provide a lot of upside in the defensive category specifically.
All right. And with that, gentlemen, Alex, take us to the waiver wire.
The waiver wire is here. 2 regular picks and 1 long shot is how this works typically for us on the waiver wire show. Although I think a couple of us have some longer shots than usual. Like I have 2 long shots. I think everybody else does close to as well. I'm just going to jump right into it. Nick Richards of the Charlotte Hornets, who is 33% rostered. I was shocked. Like a cartoon where the eyes come out of the sockets, that he was only 33% rostered. How am I even recommending him? He had like 7 okay games in a row, like where he only averaged 8 points on 60% shooting with like 8 rebounds and a block. He got hurt for 4 days. I think everyone was like, I don't need this. Yeah. Please add him. Mark Williams is, quote, not close to returning. In Charlotte Hornets speak, that means his career is over. As a starter for Nick Richards, 9 points, 9 boards, 1.5 blocks, 65% shooting, 71% from the line. Not bad if you're in a cat league and rostering centers. Hornets have 4 games next week. You just have to add him.
I'm with you on that. On Nick Richards, missed 3 games but returned and had a great outing against Detroit. One of his first 2010 game of the season.
Yeah, and great percentages lately.
Ken, who's your waiver wire suggestion?
I'm gonna ride the Harrison Barnes roller coaster for a week. Hey, he's having a terrible season, but he's exploded for 39 points Thursday. Had 32 points on Monday. He seems really old, but he's only 31. Kings score 118.7, basically 119 points per game. That ranks 7th in the association. They've been picking up the pace lately. Kings have 4 games next week. So I'm in for a 1-week stream of Harrison Barnes just to see if he keeps this heater going.
Ken, I want to let everybody know that Ken is one of our sales guys at RotoWire, and he started off his Harrison Barnes take with, "Hey, this guy sucks." But setting expectations early, getting the negative out of the way. I love it. This is regular Wolf of Wall Street over here. But no, I think that's fine, Ken. Barnes is one of those guys who, on 4-game weeks, you add him off the waiver wire, and if he's going to shoot 20 times a game, just add the guy and see what happens.
Yeah. They won the last 2 after losing 4 in a row. Maybe they're just giving him a real bright green light. I'm willing to try it for a week.
Absolutely. Shannon.
My first recommendation of the week is a guy we talked about numerous times this year. His roster percentage is trending up in a big way, even in the past 12 hours, he's gained about 10%. Jonathan Kuminga is now 60% rostered forward for the Golden State Warriors. He has absolutely been thriving since moving back to the bench role. You got Draymond Green back with this team now. Over the past week, Kuminga is a top 10 player with averages of 25.6 points, 6.2 rebounds, 1.2 steals, and 1.8 3-pointers. He had a giant game against the Kings last night. That's like 3 giant games in a row. He's absolutely worth rostering. Golden State does only have 3 games in the next week, but I think you scoop up Kuminga and just ride him for as long as he stays hot.
Yeah, Kuminga, he complained to Steve Kerr. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what my role is. And he's been playing pretty well since then. I don't know if him and Kerr sit down and it started working. But, and I don't know if you mentioned this, Shannon. I'm sorry. I was reading some great comments we got. Like Scott Engel added Barnes last night and knows he'll cut him in 2 more games. Kuminga, 22 straight games with double-digit points on 59% shooting. Excellent. So, yeah, definitely add Kuminga.
I think they could be showcasing Wiggins a little to move him before the deadline and get Kuminga back in the starting lineup.
I'm kind of confused. Like I go back and forth on what I think Golden State's going to do because I don't know if Wiggins is tradable. I think he's like a negative asset. I think you have to actually dump him to somewhere.
Right. In baseball, you'd say we'll pay him 80%. Now take him.
Right, and then
yeah.
Right, and it's like part of the reason they're bad is because he's bad. So it's like, do you have to trade Kuminga? And then I don't know, but
I know a team that would actually they have the cap space. And
you're throwing Moses Moody. You should throw in Moody with him. Maybe that's appealing.
Moody and Wiggins.
Yeah.
Some picks. Yeah, Detroit Pistons. We'll see.
2nd rounders to the Pistons. Yeah, they take a shot on him. He'll be in shape eventually.
Speaking of taking a shot, John Konchar of the Memphis Grizzlies. I wanted to recommend Luke Kennard, but I'm pretty sure I recommended him last week. He's only 30. He's only 33% rostered. Kennard is 4% rostered. Konchar is. So this is pretty much a deep league suggestion. He's coming off an 11, 10, 2 assists, 1 rebound. 1 steal, 1 block, double. The game before that, he had 5 blocks. The game before that, he had 6 assists. Past 4 games for Konchar, 6, 6, and 4 with 2.5 stocks. I don't know why he is suddenly Dikembe Mutombo, despite being, and I double-checked this, 6'5", 210 pounds. The Grizzlies have 4 games this week. That is a huge, huge portion of this. If you are in a 16-team league, he is addable because there's 4 games, and he's shown stuff lately.
Someone must legally play for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yes, they need the roster. They need to put 5 players on the court. And again, Luke Kennard is the preferred ad by recommending him last week. So if you're in a deep league, Konchar.
Well, as long as we're talking all-star snubs, Vince Williams. Come on, you got to get him on there.
Vince Williams.
I do love me some Vince Williams, though. But
man, if you only listen to fantasy basketball podcasts and consume no other basketball, you would think Vince Williams is averaging like 25 a game.
All right. I'm going to bring up our cover guy, who frankly is probably not available in your league, but make sure Brandon Miller of your Charlotte Hornets is not available on the waiver wire. You got to check. On Wednesday morning, he was available in 50% of leagues. He then shot up to 69% rostered on Thursday afternoon. When I checked Friday morning, it's up to 70% rosters. But Miller is on fire. He's getting big scoring opportunities with Scary Terry now in Miami. This team's building around Ball, Miller, and Mark Williams if he ever is able to walk again. Just make sure Miller's not available. Spend that fab if you're in a weekly budget free agent bidding league. Over the last 7 days, he's a top 25 player. He's lighting it up, and he's finally getting stocks. Kind of a weird, it's the opposite of the rookie wall. We're seeing a late blossoming of Brandon Miller as they're giving him a lot of shots in Charlotte. And I think Ball's making his life a little easier, having a legit point guard versus maybe more a little scattered Rozier makes things easier for a traditional wing like Miller.
Yeah, with Gordon Hayward out, Scary Terry out of town. Yeah, basically makes Miller the number 2 or number 3 scoring option for Charlotte in most games, depending on if Bridges is lighting it up that game, and Bridges might not be long for Charlotte. So,
Yeah.
Miller's value should only go up from here. Over the past week, top 25 player.
Yeah, here's his 4-game stats: over 24 points, 6.5 boards, almost 3 assists, and 1.3 stocks with fabulous percentages. The percentages is the shocker. He couldn't hit the broadside of a barn first half of the season. For the last 4 games, he's been hitting 57%. Ball probably deserves some of the credit for that. Shannon, who's your second pick? You're bringing back a pod favorite.
Yeah, gunner from Phoenix, Sam Merrill. Guard, 24% rostered, top 60 player over the past week, just crushing it from downtown. 5.7 threes per game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 18.7 points over the past 2 games. Cleveland has 4 games next week. We know what Sam Merrill is. Those 5.7 3-pointers seem like it's an inflated number. But he's, he should his normal click. He's right around 50% over that stretch. He's just a volume 3-point guy. He's going to get tons of looks from downtown. Over the past 3 games, 12 attempts per game on 47% shooting. That's not unsustainable from a guy like Merrill. I don't think there's much value outside of that 3-pointer, and it's going to come and go. But right now, he fits the need for Cleveland. If you're in the market for Sam Merrill, Luke Kennard, same type of players, similar value. I think I prefer Kennard a little bit more because his role with that battered Memphis team is a little bit more secure. But Merrill's that next option for you.
The Garland news. Alex, you got any update on Darius Garland coming back from that broken jaw?
Soon, I think.
Yeah, it's supposed to be soon. I mean, at the end of this month, it was like the original date, but it sounds like, again, it's one of those things where it's like, if you have a broken jaw, it's hard to eat. You can't condition. Pain is a thing. So I won't be surprised if the injury drags on maybe a little bit longer than was hoped. Just, it's a pretty serious injury.
So the current stance is he was cleared for basketball activity around January 19th, ruled out of the 4-game road trip that Cleveland was on at the time.
Yeah,
they're going to return to home January 29th against the Clippers. So we're looking at Monday night. He could return as soon as next week.
But did they also? They don't even need to rush him back. They don't lose anymore. So
they're playing great. Jared Allen has been awesome lately. Down low without Mobley. Anyway, we digress. Whose turn is it for a pick here?
I think it's my turn.
I think
yeah,
so.
it is.
You got a second long shot, don't you, Alex?
I do. Sorry, I was looking up Brandon Miller's stats. I was like, how is he? Brandon Miller hasn't missed a shot at the rim in the past 4 games, by the way. 12 of 12. And getting to the foul line. Ayo Dosunmu of the Chicago Bulls, someone I almost swore I would never recommend again. But this is how this works. Zach LaVine's out for another week, so you're fairly safe there. Dosunmu finally showing some aggression scoring the basketball. 15 points on 60, 50, 94 shooting. Yes, that will come down. But he's taken at least 2 free throws in every game, which is for him a massive accomplishment. Also 3 assists, 2.5 boards, 1.7 stocks. This is partially a recommendation because you have the trade deadline coming up, and LaVine, DeRozan, all these guys they're on the block, they're in the ether, and so Dosunmu's playing well. His teammates could get traded. You never know. It's worth exploring. Bulls with 3 games, so it's not necessarily like a must add in 12. It doesn't have to be a main priority in 12 teamers. But it is one of only 8 teams with 3 games this week, as a heads up.
Interesting. I was tempted by Dosunmu, but the 3 games scared me off. So I went really boring with the Italian stallion, Simone Fontecchio, playing for Utah, still starting at small forward for those guys. Utah has 4 games next week. Look, he's not particularly good in any one facet of the game, but he's kind of a poor man's Kelly Olynyk, doing okay everywhere. Last 4 games, he's scored in double digits in each of those 4 games. He's averaged 12.5 points, almost 6 rebounds, almost 3 triples, over 2 assists while shooting 56% from the field. The volume is never going to be there, for Fontecchio, but again, consistent in almost every category. And the Jazz have 4 games next week. Only rostered in 13% of leagues.
I'm 2 for 2 betting on Fontecchio over 3-pointers bet. So I'm absolutely with you, Ken. He's a monster.
Making you Benjamins.
Yes. Shannon, let's go to your long shot.
Yeah, my long shot, we're going to go with another rookie, Amen Thompson. I just can't get over my infatuation with both of the twins. I think they're fantastic. Their stock upside just intrigues me to no end. Amen for the Rockets is rostered in 20% of leagues right now. He's been a top 100 player over the past week, which did include one spot start when Freddie VanVleet was rested for a game. Over the past 6 games, Thompson is averaging 9.2 points, 6.5 rebounds, 2.2 assists, and 2.1 stocks. In that one spot start as well, we really saw everything he could do. 15 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal. It was 0 for 2 from downtown, like his brother. He's still trying to find that long-range stroke. But he is an across-the-board contributor when he gets the minutes. He is now firmly a part of the Rockets rotation. And this Rockets team is somewhat, tumbling down the standings. They're 3-7 over their past 10. I would not be surprised especially if they keep losing, if they move a veteran or two and free up minutes for some of their young guys, including Thompson, for the stretch run.
They should absolutely do that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's end with any drop suggestions. I'm going to throw out Cam Johnson. Nets only have 3 games next week, one of 8 teams with only 3 games. And he's averaging 9 points a contest over his last 7 games. That looked like a fabulous trade for the Nets last year, but it's not really working out as well. So I think Cam Johnson's very droppable. You guys have any other drops?
Cam's a hold for me in 12 and 14 teamers. 10 teamers, absolutely. I think he's worth there's better streaming options available.
Yeah, we got asked about Cam Johnson on Nick and I's, and I was like, 10-team points league. You don't have to drop him. You can. It's kind of borderline, but
I got one for you. Josh Giddey.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he was on my bust list for going into the season. He just doesn't fit that offense as well. They need a more of a pure shooter in that spot. He drives too much, and he doesn't get fouled when he drives to the hoop.
I would say if you're in points leagues, points-based leagues, I like him quite a bit more. He does worry me with some of his efficiency. And over the past 3 games, for instance, only shooting 40% from the floor and 50% from the free throw line.
Here's our other drop candidate. All the others on the Mavericks. The Mavs have 3 points, 3 games next week. Who's been playing well outside of their star guards has wildly oscillated week to week. So I think if you have one of the others on the Mavs, you can drop them. All right. With that, I think it's time to hear from our good friends at FanDuel. Yes, FanDuel, who sponsors our Friday NBA DFS chat, which will be coming up later in the show. But let's talk NFL playoffs. Hey, you can tackle millions in prizes all playoffs long in FanDuel fantasy contests. If you're new to fantasy, there's no better time than the NFL playoffs to get in on the action, because right now, new customers get a 100% deposit match of up to $100. Play fantasy for huge cash prizes on FanDuel. It's fun and it's exciting. Just draft your lineup and watch your team move up the leaderboard. Now, I know for this weekend, I'm kind of big on Brock Purdy against the Lions pass defense. But, Shannon, who are you eyeing FanDuel NFL playoff lineups?
How dare you, Ken? I like the Lions stack. Give me the Jared Goff, Sun God stack at quarterback and receiver. They are projected to be one of the – Goff in particular is projected to be one of the lower rostered QBs. And – of course, Detroit's going to pull off the upset.
Love it. Hey, on FanDuel, you can choose from full slate contests featuring multiple games, single game contests, season-long best ball contests, and beginner-only contests, which are great for those learning the ropes. And when you win, you get paid instantly. So kick off the football playoffs with a 100% deposit match of up to $100. Go to FanDuel.com to start playing for huge cash prizes today. And with that, gentlemen, please take it away for the FanDuel Friday DFS segment.
There are 8 games today. The highest over-unders are Dallas at Atlanta, although there are some injuries in that game. 244.5. We also have Phoenix at Indiana, 243.5. I was kind of surprised to see Phoenix only favored by 4.5. They've been cooking lately. But as I mentioned, at Dallas and Atlanta, Kyrie Irving questionable for this game. Trae Young, Clint Capella, both questionable for this game. So a little hard to evaluate right off the top. But we have a decent string of games where there are seemingly no injuries. Actually, it's a fairly light slate right now in terms of questionable and doubtful and probable guys. So on this slate, Shannon, where are you turning first?
Yeah, I mean, the first game of interest is going to be that top over-under with Dallas and Atlanta. And the Trae Young and Capella news are, they loom heavy over our heads when we're making these roster decisions because each player has like an obvious alternative that you're going to turn to for DFS. DeJounte Murray at point guard. Also Bogdanovich, both of those players see a nice bump when Trae Young sits. And then Capella, if he's out, obviously we go with Okongwu. He would be one of my absolute favorite plays. He's 6,100 on FanDuel. Pretty expensive given his role coming off the bench. But if Okongwu starts for Capella, I think he's still worth that. And then on DraftKings, Okongwu's considerably more affordable, 4,600.
I will say a couple guys I like right off the bat. We have this Cleveland Milwaukee rematch, which I'm fairly interested in. And Jarrett Allen had a very big game against Milwaukee in the previous game. 21 points, 12 boards, 5 assists. Didn't have a block though, but took 19 shots. That's massive. He's 8,300 right now on FanDuel. Look, at 8,300. His ceiling isn't like sky high. He's not going to have like a 90 fantasy point game, right? Obviously. But I don't think he's going to let you down at that price. I mean, the last time he was under 35 fantasy points was December 21st. So I think it's a really great floor play, especially if you're in a cash lineup. I think that's a decent option. Anything else, Shannon?
Yeah, I mean, one other nugget to point out with Jarrett Allen is the fact that Tristan Thompson was suspended for 25 games.
He's on steroids.
Hey, that explains it. All right. Now we know why he was still in the NBA.
Nick Claxton's like, no wonder the guy went off on me. He's all
right.
loopy on the roids.
But Tristan Thompson was surprisingly seeing significant minutes off the bench as the backup center, playing 16 minutes over his most recent 9 games. So Jarrett Allen could see his minutes increase significantly. That wasn't the case in the first game without Thompson out against the Bucks. Allen only played 32 minutes, but there are going to be nights where he needs to play 40 minutes, depending on how the flow of the game's rolling and how competitive it is. So I do like Allen as an option tonight.
A couple other guys we should note in this Toronto Clippers game. Toronto's at home, but Clippers are favored by 7.5. And that is because not only is Jakob Poeltl out, but Emmanuel Quickley is also out. So, gut feeling for me, I think decent options are like RJ Barrett, Dennis Schroeder as value plays at the same time. RJ Barrett is probably going to be checked by Paul George or Kawhi Leonard for a decent chunk of the game, or Terrence Mann. So I would be a little bit worried about that. I would almost just prefer Dennis Schroeder at 5,900. But to me, I don't feel like 5,900 is like a steal for Dennis Schroeder. I don't feel like I'm slotting in my lineup and getting almost guaranteed value.
Now, even before they acquired Quickley, Schroeder was oftentimes in that $6,000 range. So I agree. He is a better value on DraftKings than he is FanDuel for tonight's slate. 5,200 for Schroeder on DraftKings. I like him considerably more at 5,200 than 59 on FanDuel. But I think if he's announced as a starter, he is in play. Another guard from a different game that I like quite a bit, right in that same range, 5,400 from Markelle Fultz on FanDuel. He is back in the starting lineup, played 29 minutes in his most recent game for Orlando. I feel like we're getting there to the point where he's going to be playing 30 minutes or maybe top 30 minutes on a more regular basis. And with that will come fantasy production.
That game is interesting. Memphis 6-point underdogs. I'm not going to say I would take Memphis as 6-point underdogs at home, but I would think about it. Super low over under on that game, though. 212 and a half.
I was just going to say 212 under. What is this, 1992?
Yeah, that game's going to be a grind. We also have Pelicans at the Thunder. I'm intrigued by Zion Williamson at 7,900 on FanDuel. He weighs just as much as Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams combined in the front court. So there could be some bully ball going on there. Zion's kind of having a weird season. Like he had 11 assists the last game out. Then you'll have like no rebounds. Then you'll have 10 rebounds and back and forth. But
terrible. The rebound is terrible.
He's a walking 30 to 35 fantasy points. And he's just 7,900. I think a fairly good matchup for him. So I would be looking into that.
Yeah, sub $8,000 Zion's always intriguing. Like you said, walking 35 to 40 fantasy points, and he can pop off and have a 50+ point outing. That's happened this season and in past years. So I do like Zion as well.
Before we wrap this up, Shannon, any parting thoughts on roster, game, construction, anything like that?
Yeah, keep an eye on Kyrie Irving's status. If he's ruled out, I like Tim Hardaway quite a bit more on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Chris Middleton on DraftKings, 6,300. I'm honestly confused by his salary. It's gone down from 74 to 66 to 6,300 over the past 3 games. And he's crushing it. He had 36 points, 42 fantasy points against Cleveland just a couple nights ago. I think with this team, where he's at, his minutes, he's routinely playing over 30 minutes now. He's not being held in check anymore because of some kind of minutes limit. This is a team that has a new coach. Rotations probably tweaked a little bit, and I think that's going to work to Middleton's advantage because they're just going to try to get the best seed possible in the Eastern Conference. So 6,300, Chris Middleton, he's my best value for this slate.
I liked Giannis joking about Middleton dunking the ball when he was trying to avoid talking about coaching changes.
Yeah. Middleton, when he's healthy for Bucks fans, he's like a comfort object. He's like a stuffed animal. It's like I'm watching. It's like, oh yeah, Middleton turnaround, fade away, great. Oh, corner 3, great. Nice dime to Giannis, great. 25 and 5, perfect. And DFS, it can be the same as well when he's healthy. Good like cash game, building block. But enough for us, Ken. It's time for your old man rant.
Arg! Miami's heat culture is stupid. On their alternate court design, each key area has the text, quote, hardest working, best conditioned, most professional, unselfish, toughest, meanest, nastiest team in the NBA, unquote. If you have to say it, then it isn't true. This squad's 24 and 21. They just let the Celtics shoot 64% from the field Thursday night in Miami. Luke Cornett put 12 points on them. And have you seen this crowd? Their dark leather tans, trophy wives, and excessive jewelry. I've never seen so many Donatella Versace's at a sports event. Actions speak louder than words, Miami. Arrgh!
Yeah, putting that court out with the jerseys and then like getting smoked, that's tough. That's horrible. It's like slapping the floor on defense and then getting like dunked on immediately, basically.
If you have to say it, it isn't true.
I think we avoided any mispronounced names in this podcast. Nothing egregious, obviously. So I think we can wrap this up. thank you, everybody. Thank you to the live listeners, the chatters, the chatters helping other chatters out. That's very nice. Thank you.
Shannon answering questions or doing email?
Shannon's probably doing his real job right now. Thank you, everybody, again for joining us on the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. And as always, apologies to our sponsors, Underdog Fantasy and FanDuel. Ken, take us out of here.
Let's go back to New York, where Julius Randle was really excited about Thursday night's big win over the Nuggets. Randle said, quote, "I'm not going to lie to you, bro. It's regular season. I could care less." I like the fact that we won, first and foremost. You don't want to be on that end, but we're building the right habits. For me, it only matters in April, end quote. Attention passengers, this 3-car fantasy train wreck has hit the end of the line.